Referee Nuck Nuck Johnson calls for a start to this matchup. As we mentioned just before the start of the match, the USOS have not been seen on Actually Real Wrestling since the debut stream all the way back in August of 2019. They picked up a victory over the Young Bucks in the first match ever on the stream. Who knew that was going to kick off a Fire Pro Wrestling World addiction for myself? And if I'm being totally honest, I don't mind it all that much. I've had so much fun putting these streams on, these cards, and being able to tell these fantastic wrestling stories that Fire Pro Wrestling World, the Steam community, and of course Carl Zilla with the mod pack makes possible. As Rick Scott opening up here against Jimmy Uso, and Zaguri connects. Sent into the ropes. Shoulder tackle by Rick Scott. And sent to the outside by Jimmy. Jimmy missing there. Here's a tag to Scott Rick. Double team coming. Fought off by Jimmy. Jimmy and Scott Rick tie up, and he eats an elbow by one half of the Stoner brothers. Elbow with the sit down. Thought that could be it. Hard body slam. Goes back to the elbow, does Scott Rick. Just using that mass, that near 300-pound frame of Scott Rick. Taking on both Usos at once. Jay, now the legal man. And he's going to answer the elbows with hard left hands. Is Jay Uso. Boot to the midsection and a pin. Scott Rick really liking the elbow. Gonna try and make the Usos work for it. Drops down to Jay. Scott Rick hung on. Sends him back to the rope. Scott Rick hangs on the other side. But he's put it in the corner this time. Knife edge chop connects. And a left hand now for Jay Uso. As Arena Mexico impressed. And Gorilla Press Slam by Scott Rick. The strength on display. He makes the tag to his brother. Here comes Rick Scott. And Jay is hightailing it. Gets the hot tag. Here comes Jimmy. And all four in the ring now. Rick, Scott, and Jimmy. Picking up where they left off from just a few minutes ago. Caught the leg and went low. Did Rick Scott into the camel clutch here. Center of the ring. Jimmy's in a tough spot, but he escapes the camel clutch and answers with a body slam before tagging in his brother. Here comes Jay, and Rick Scott going to take them both on. Outside leg hooked on the wrong Uso. Rick Scott seeing double. Rick Scott sends Jay into the ropes. Hard elbow as he came back. Dodged the kick. Arm drag takeover by Jay Uso. And Rick Scott going to go for the tag. He makes it. Here comes Scott Rick. Hard body slam. Drops the elbow across the chest. And Jimmy in to break up the cover. And the Uso is going to go to work on Scott Rick. But no, he fights off the double team. Chases off Jimmy. And Jay has a window now. Hits the elbow to the back. And going to work on the lower back of Scott, but it's going to go for a power bomb, reversing the back body drop. And there's an elbow across the clavicle of Scott Rick. Double drop kick by the Usos. They've done it 1,000 times, and Jay drops a knee right down there in no man's land, and a couple missed strikes, but there's an enziguri by Jimmy Uso. He connects right on the side of the head of Scott Rick, and Scott sees a window to tag in Rick Scott, and here comes Rick. Tag to Jay Uso. Now, Rick Scott with the headgear, and Jay Uso, I believe, your two legal competitors. Yes, that's Jay Uso now who hits the headbutt on Rick Scott. Drops the elbow. Kick to the midsection, and Rick Scott's had enough. Reversal, though, by Jay Uso into the ropes, drops down. catches him with a back elbow. No, blocked by Rick Scott. Put into the corner by Jey Uso. Was going to go for that Uso splash, but Samoan drop will have to do instead. But Jey is in the wrong part of town here. Outside leg hook for Rick Scott. Kick out at 2 by Jey Uso, and Jimmy there to protect his brother. Camel clutch now for Jimmy. And Jimmy just looking to get some offense in. Here comes Scott Rick. He tags in. The touch work of the Stoner brothers on display. They know how to dominate a tag match. Really just kind of the bad end of a incredible display last week against the Squad when they got the victory. A double suplex sends Scott Rick to the outside, and Jey Uso going to go to work, but he is put into the barricade by Scott Rick, and a hard right hand knocks down Jey. Meanwhile, Rick Scott working on Jimmy with a camel clutch inside the ring. Counts now at 12, count of 20, and this match is over via count out. But Scott Rick not going to let it happen. They want to get their first win here on ARW to the Stoner brothers. And what a way to do it against a team as accomplished as the Usos, who are undefeated in their own right. Powerbomb, no, pile driver connects here for Scott Rick. Scott Rick sends Jey into the ropes, caught him with a forearm coming from the opposite side. Tag to Rick Scott, missed with the clubbing lariat. Tag to Jimmy Uso. Here come all 4 competitors. Here's a single leg Boston Crab by Scott Rick on Jimmy. But Rick Scott better focus up here. He lands a kick to the midsection. That downs Jimmy. Drops the elbow into the cover. Here comes Jey to break it up at 2. Arena Mexico. Firing up here as fatigue starting to set in as we cross the 14-minute mark of the matchup. DDT for Jimmy Uso. Goes back to the elbow. Outside leg hook. 2 and kick out by Rick Scott. There's a hard clothesline by Scott Rick. Puts Jey down on the canvas. Now Northern Light suplex by Jimmy. 0.9. Rick Scott not able to. He was able to hang on there with a kick out. All 4 tie up, body slam, and a DDT simultaneously. Rick Scott and Jimmy left standing, and Jimmy gets the flying crossbody chop. Puts down Rick Scott. And the Usos are firing up here. And tag to Scott Rick, so now all 4 back in the ring. We've seen a lot of it. Both Stoners stacked up in the corner. And Scott Rick now up in the tree of woe, tag to Jey Uso, who hits him, knocks him free. Up top now, mounted punches by Jimmy Uso. Jimmy and Scott Rick, your 2 legal competitors. There's a huge Uso splash off the top rope, signature for Jimmy Uso. Sends Scott Rick into the ropes, and you see Scott labored there as the single leg takedown connects, and Jimmy's feeling it. He's waiting on Scott Rick. Flying crossbody from the top rope. 1, 2, and kick out by Scott Rick, just barely able to get out of there. And Scott Rick, Jimmy Uso trading in the 3-point stance, shoulder tackle. Puts Jimmy on the mat. Ties up now, and there's a cane right to the jaw. Follows it up with a clubbing blow to the lower back of Jimmy Uso, and it looks like both teams are going to make tags. All 4 men in the ring now. The Stoner brothers. Scott Rick fights off the double team, and the Usos are both out. Simultaneous reversals by the Usos. And it's now Rick Scott in the headgear and Jey Uso trading. Super kick connects for Jey Uso, who tags in Jimmy. And they're going to go for the double team. Rick Scott evades it, but a Samoan drop couldn't evade that. Rick Scott now dazed, out on his feet. There's a kick right to the back by Jimmy. Jimmy hits the ropes. Jimmy goes for the flying clothesline. He gets it. Reverse DDT, center of the ring. Jimmy Uso has been carrying his team here. And the Usos, of course, looking to stay undefeated with a victory here over the Stoner brothers. Stars of Hood Slam in their own right. And still to come, our main event, the Hood Slam Super 6. Coming up next as a sliding elbow connects for Jimmy Uso. but he then goes for a ride on a body slam by Rick Scott. Rick Scott hits the ropes now, and he hits a hard running clothesline, downs Jimmy. And Jimmy's going to hightail it here, and they can't chase him down, the Stoner brothers, and he makes the tag. Here comes Jay. We've seen a lot of all four competitors in the ring. Scott Rick now the legal competitor, and he knows which USO is legal. But a single leg Alabama slam worked for Jay, but a low blow now by Scott Rick, legal by actual real wrestling rules. A hard clothesline. German suplex whip. And Jay's going to look for a change. Going to go to the hot hand since Jimmy's been carrying the team thus far. Jimmy Uso has a dazed Scott Rick. He connects with a kick to the back of the head. Then a kick to the midsection. Knocks the wind out of Scott Rick. Crumpled him. Hard body slam, center of the ring. And there's a super kick by Jimmy Uso. Hits the ropes and a running splash to the down Scott Rick. And Scott Rick could be going for that pile driver. No, powerbomb reversed into a hitting predicament. Athleticism there by Jimmy Uso, but Rick Scott there to break up the pin. Quick tags by both teams. Extremely experienced in the tag teams, of course. Here's a pile driver by Rick Scott. Scott Rick, meanwhile, body slam by Jimmy Uso. And there's a German suplex by Rick Scott. Sliding elbow by Jay Uso, who lands a super kick. And Jay's going to the high rent district. Uso splash into the cover, but wrong part of the ring. Scott Rick easily able to break it up. And a pile driver for Rick Scott. Has Jay Uso in a gorilla press slam, drops him. And Rick Scott just staring him down. Hits the ropes, running boot, hits it again. A second boot connects for Rick Scott. Going back to the gorilla press slam, showing off the strength. Sees a window to tag in Scott Rick. And needed to stay on top of Jimmy. He slips away and makes the tag to Jimmy. Jimmy with a Northern Light suplex. Rick Scott has had the 4 count, and there's the 3 count by the Usos.